Mr. Sanders.
Thank you. In the interest of full disclosure, I work for Hollis in real life, so I got a little bit of a take. And I could talk, as Senator French said, about healthcare, I could talk about this for hours. About 70% of the tourists that come to Alaska show up on a ship. And people don't like that fact, but it is a fact. And the ships left here for one reason and one reason only. They left here because they make more money somewhere else. They didn't get put in dry dock somewhere. They didn't get put up, you know, just floating around the ocean. They made more money somewhere else. So from a business perspective, you can do two things. You can try to market more and talk people into spending more money for a cruise up here. And some marketing dollars will go into that. You can reduce the cost of doing business here, whether it be through the regulatory environment or the tax, and what we consider to be just a $50 tax from the industry's perspective is $50 million that you're arguing with. It's 1 million passengers, so it's not $50. The bottom line is the ships leave because they make more money somewhere else. So because it's such a large percentage of our tourism industry, we have to engage to get the ships back. In Hawaii, for instance, in Hawaii, cruise ships bring about probably 3 to 4% of the visitors there. They all fly to Hawaii. So if all the airlines are, a majority of the airlines pulled out, the Hawaiians would be in an uproar. What do we get to do with more airlines if you're the cruises? They're just negligible. But in Alaska, it's not that way. And there's not a lot of ways for them to get people to fly up here in these vast numbers, thousands at a time. You need 20 flights a day to catch a can for a ship. And that's just not going to happen. So you could not like it, but the reality is they make more money somewhere else and we should engage. I agree with the governor's original bill, which would allow more marketing. I know what the legislature did is they just flat out put an appropriation in there, which isn't as sustainable for marketing.
Thanks, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Berkowitz.
Yeah, I spent 3 seasons working down in the Antarctic, and one of those seasons I was in charge of environmental enforcement for the U.S. Antarctic program, and part of that I had some really rigorous duty. I was a shipboard observer on some cruise ships. I gained more weight in about a month than I've gained since then, including my time in Juneau at the Legislative Lounge. But when I listen to the question that you posed, how do we get more tourists up here? The cruise discussion is interesting and it's fun to have. But the question is, how do we get more people here? Not how did you vote on a head tax or what would you do? And I have to agree with finding approachment here. And we've got to do more tourism marketing. It's as simple as that. We put $12 million in this year. Well, most states are putting 20, 25, 30, $40 million into marketing, and we're competing with them. We can't just rely on the fact that Alaska is beautiful and wonderful. You have to tell people that. You have to induce them to come here. I mean, all of us are candidates, and the way we're going to get people to vote for us is we're going to raise money, buy ads, and convince them that our faces are the ones that they want to push the button for. So the same works for the cruise industry and for the tourism industry. People need to know that they have to come to Alaska, and that Alaska is a great place to visit. The other thing we need to do is make sure there are more facilities for people. During my time in the legislature, there was a great push for press cruises along the Seward Highway. Great push. Those real Alaskans thought a tree was fine, but apparently that offended the sensibilities of folks who were new to the state. And did a lot of rescue. And it encouraged tourism. Those are the sort of progressive thinking that we have to do. You have to make this a friendly place for people to go. We have to go to Alaska.
Thank you, Mr. Berkowitz. We'll start the next question with Mr. French. How do you see Alaska's future in terms of energy, and more specifically, do you support the development of nuclear energy in the state?
Short answer to nuclear, fine if that's what you want to see, but we've got plenty of renewables here before we get to that. Right now, we have an opportunity, probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When we reformed oil taxes in 2007, we finally got a fair share for that non-renewable resource that's flowing down the pipeline every year. And that's led to enormous surpluses, frankly. In 2008, we put $5 billion into savings. It's put us in this place where we can afford to do things and make the investments that we've begun to make and that we should continue to make in in renewables, right? You take your non-renewable oil flow and turn it into renewable energy. That's the trick. That's what we have to do now. And we've begun by investing in hydro projects in Southeast. We've invested in, revamping our buildings so that we make them more energy efficient. We're looking for ways to make the state work on renewable energy. I've been traveling in the bush a lot the last year, and frankly, bush Alaska will go away unless we do something about the crushingly high cost of energy. Frankly, the rest of the state is unsympathetic to us here in Anchorage because we enjoy some of the lowest energy prices, not only in the state, but also in the nation. We have extremely low energy prices here. We've got abundant and a pretty good supply of natural gas. Our electricity costs are fairly reasonable. You go to Fairbanks, and it's a different story. When you get outside of Fairbanks and get up on the Yukon River or out to the YK Delta, and it's extremely different. Those communities are in crisis, and we've got to do something. You cannot raise a family when gasoline is $9 a gallon, when home heating fuel is $9 a gallon. And so what we've begun to do is make investments in those communities to bring down the cost of energy, using the surplus we have now while the oil pipeline is still pumping, while the revenues are coming in, and make those investments so that Alaskans can enjoy a decent standard of living. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Hollis?
Well, I used to run the Alaska Energy Authority, so I've kind of dealt with both the urban and rural and southeast energy issues. And I think we have to think about those a little bit separately. So from an urban standpoint, I think we ought to develop Chakachama. I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense, and get hydroelectric going again. The only thing we have is a Cluton and Bradley Lake right now. I sat on the Alaska Power Authority board when we did Bradley Lake, and it's turned out to be a big success. I think we ought to also be doing renewables, like, for instance, the wind farm on Fire Island, the tidal project on the deep side of Fire Island, and if it makes sense, the geothermal project around Redoubt. In fact, a 100-mile radius around Anchorage, you've got every kind of energy you can dream of. Now, rural Alaska is a really interesting challenge because Hollis is right. The cost of diesel is just crushing. But pound for pound, gallon for gallon, there's nothing that packs more energy or is more easily transported as that. So what I think we ought to be doing is developing combination wind diesel projects that are standardized, that have interchangeable parts, that are easily maintained across villages, that you can train people easily to use them. And when we develop that technology, which reduces that diesel usage, which brings down the cost of energy, once we perfect those, we can start selling that technology to Africa, to South America, to the stands. And because we have experience in implementing those projects and training people to run them, we can also implement those projects. I think we need to be entrepreneurial about it. In Southeast, it's hydro. They got more hydro than they know what to do with. The Fort-Dam pool has been successfully transferred to the communities it served. The Southeast Intertie is being successful. I think we need to start tying the smaller communities together. But hydro is largely going to be what works out there. Lastly, I support a gas pipeline that goes from the Prudhoe Bay to Fairbanks. It creates a hub in Fairbanks. Because, okay, I support that.
Do you see Alaska's future in terms of energy, and more specifically, do you support the development of nuclear energy?
Yeah, I don't think the nuclear is going to be top on my list. There's going to be a tremendous amount of gas on the slope. If the state is willing to invest in ourselves, we can get a bullet line down here. You can help the mining industry at Donald Creek in what is one of the poorest regions of this whole state, in the right actually built it here in Antioch. You can reduce the cost of just day-to-day living in Fairbanks, and help their refinery, which is going to have problems, with a place to operate, which helps their Air Force Base Fileson, which is, was on the chopping block one time. If you can get energy along the rail belt and into Mukisky, we can have all of those things and then let the private sector develop and see what comes along. Nuclear is going to fall away after we got a tremendous amount of geothermal. I believe it's a spur. Syria has been coal to pull the liquids behind too. So I think there's a lot of other options on some renewables as well as some different types of conventional fuel.
Thank you, Mr. Samuels.